some interesting reaction to this next discussion, but very formally, there has been an introduction of bills in 3 states to legalise cannabis. Now, I know we've been down this road before, but they're having another crack. This is the Legalised Cannabis Party introducing bills into 3 states to legalise the consumption for personal use of cannabis. So first up, as you're hearing the discussion, 133 882. Are we ready to go down this path now? You see what's going on in other parts of the world, and I think the ACT is the only place that does have a regime in place where you can. Why can't Western Australia? Let's have the discussion now. Dr. Brian Walker is from the WA Legalised Cannabis Party. He's the leader there, and he joins us. G'day, Brian. How are you?
I'm good, Gary. How about yourself?
Not bad. All right. So this particular bill would make it lawful for people to grow, is it up to 6 plants? Is that right?
Well, that's the national approach we're taking. In WA, we'd want to go more, 8 or 12, but 6 is what we're putting in the bill just now.
Okay. Now, how do you work out what that means for someone, 6 or 8 to 12 plants?
Well, look, 6 is probably a reasonable number for general use, but if you've got medicinal problems, say you're treating your own cancer, for example, then you're going to need up to 12 plants, depending on yield. So, yeah, what we really want to have is cannabis able to be grown for personal use as you need.
So on that then, now that we have taken steps in advance with medicinal cannabis, why would we need to grow our own cannabis for our own therapy in terms of, say, cancer or other issues?
Well, medicinal cannabis is all very well and good, but it's not on the PBS and it's really expensive. That's the first thing. And secondly, is it medicinal when you come back from work absolutely shattered and you want to just have a bit of a relaxation? Are you better off with a 6-pack of beer, or would cannabis be safer for you and better for you? Yeah. So it's a choice.
All right. So the bill will go into 3 states. I mean, you obviously are aware that WA probably sits as one of the more conservative states. You're up against it, aren't you?
Oh, we are indeed. But conservative, why? I mean, we've got here a healthy healing herb which can be misused, but 0 deaths per year, as against the 6,500 deaths due to alcohol each year. We allow alcohol, but we think cannabis, we should be banned. Explain the logic behind that. There is no logic.
Okay. You talk about how WA could benefit financially if they were to decriminalise. Just explain that a bit more.
Well, we actually were asking for figures, and the government couldn't give us any figures because they're not collecting them. So we had a proper research done, and it turns out that with legalizing of recreational cannabis, we have got $1.25 billion over the 4-year forward estimates, which the government is actually saying, no, we don't want that, we don't need that.
Well, that's in terms of the money that is spent in the criminal justice system on dealing with this? I mean, you're talking about savings from that type of thing?
Well, the savings, but not just with criminal justice, but also in health. But we've also got the income we'd get from the revenue which accrues from, say, a 25% tax rate on cannabis.
Yep. Okay, and in terms of those people who have already gone down the path of being criminalised, if you like, because they've been caught with an amount of cannabis, what do you say about that going forward? Because, there doesn't seem to be any indication that the major parties are going to switch their views.
Well, the major parties are frightened because they think if they're seen to be soft on drugs, they'll lose votes. And 79% of our population says, no, we think cannabis should be decriminalised at the very least. When it comes to people who've been convicted of small amounts of cannabis and are unable to get a job in Canada or to travel to the United States, there's an injustice being perpetrated. And what we really want is justice, social justice. And so I'm hoping that people who've got a conviction for minor cannabis conviction would actually have that forgiven, and the debt and the crime would be expunged.
Has it given? I mean, you're a doctor. Has it given you any sort of confidence around where we're going with this debate? Given that that we do talk very openly about the benefits of cannabis through the medicinal cannabis regime, but we are talking much more about how positive it can be for people.
Well, we also need to be aware of what can go wrong. Now, as a doctor, I must have to say that cannabis is probably the safest drug in my pharmacopoeia. But can it cause damage? It certainly can. We need to regulate it by legislating for it so that it is not given willy-nilly to young growing brains. That would be a bad idea. We also need to be aware that driving when you're intoxicated is never a good idea, whether it's cannabis, alcohol, other prescribed drugs, or indeed driving when you're sleep impaired.
So Just give us a bit of a breakdown of what you'd be asking for in the bill, because I haven't got the specifics in front of me. I know about the 6 plants, certainly nationally. You're saying you might run for 8 to 12 here in WA. What else would you see being in a bill that would make life easier for people who do decide to grow cannabis?
Basically, just to get the police out of our lives, get the criminality out of it, allow people to grow a small amount of cannabis for their own personal use and to have cannabis at home and to use it as they think fit. That's basically it. Very, very, very simple.
And what would that do to, say, the organised crime level here in WA of cannabis distribution, etc.?
Excellent question. Look, in parts of the world where we have legalized cannabis, in the US, for example, the illicit market has persisted, but it has been greatly reduced. The problem is going to be the price. If the criminals can offer it at a cheaper price, of course they're going to get it, but the quality is much less. So taking it out of the hands of criminals would be a fantastic thing to do, because I don't know about you, but I do not want my children being approached by criminals when in fact they should be medicalized by people who know what they're doing.
Yeah. And you think we've gone way past the argument of just saying to the kids, say no to drugs.
Oh, look, the war on drugs has failed. It's always failed. It will always fail. You're not going to win with that. So we've got an unwinnable war costing huge amounts of money, but also moral fabric has been decayed. The poor police officers chasing after a healthy, healing herb. And to what end? You're not actually helping society at all, are you?
And when do you introduce your bill?
Well, the bill we're giving notice of intent to introduce the bill. It's not a bill being introduced right yet. Yep. It needs to be properly drafted. And by the way, we are in WA are unable to draft our bills because we haven't been given people to draft. We've been excluded from the process of creating bills.
Interesting. All right. Hey, thanks very much for sharing it all with us today, Doctor. Appreciate your time.
That's a pleasure. You take care.
Dr. Brian Walker.